Greetings, church. I'm honored and humbled to have this opportunity. Emily and I are grateful for all the ways that God is working here at Cloverdale, especially as we move closer to our move to Japan in August. And we ask that you continue to pray for our preparation as well as for the people that are living in Japan. We know that God is already there, and we look forward to joining his work soon. But to that end, we'd appreciate your continued prayers, particularly over the visa process right now, but also as the transition that we're making from here to there. But in the meantime, I'm very glad to be with you tonight. Thank you for entrusting this time to my care as I share a little bit about us and about the work that we're anticipating in Japan. A quick aside about this picture, this is not Tachikawa. This is actually Kyoto. But I couldn't pass it up. It's this great little microcosm of Japan. You have the Shinkansen bullet train in the foreground, like the crowning achievement of technical expertise and modern stuff. But then you see the pagoda rising up in the background. That's Toji Temple, which was built sometime around the year 800. And then in the mountains in the background, it may be a little hard to see, but you can see the high wire electrical transmission line towers, and that always makes me think of Godzilla. Every time there's mountains with little towers, you know. And the building right in front of the pagoda is some sort of World War II era warehouse or manufacturing plant or something. But then not to be left out, the white building on the right. The logo on the building is hard to see, but that's Nintendo's world headquarters. So just a little bit of everything. You might recognize more of Japan than you think. But it's not Tachikawa, but it's Japan. So I thought it was a really fun picture. So I want you to get a little bit about us. First, me, I grew up in Plano, Texas, which is a suburb of Dallas. It's, like a 1 o'clock on the Dallas half of DFW. I grew up with all the usual stuff for guys, suckers and computers, and I was in the band in middle school and high school. But I was raised at the Preston Crest family in Dallas, if you're familiar with churches in the area, large, urban, mission-minded congregation, really good foundation there. I was, of course, active in what is a very large youth group. I think we had somewhere like 150 or so, but if it tells you anything about the Dallas area, our youth group had no more than 2 people at any one high school, so it was just from everywhere. So that's kind of the nature of Preston Crest. It's at the location of 2 highways, and it's easy to get there for a lot of parts of Dallas, but active in the youth group. Of course, that included weekly devotionals and service projects, but Bible bowls and work camps and mission trips and that sort of thing. So really, really fun stuff there. Quite differently, though, Emily was born in Memphis to Dwight and Josephine Albright, who were aspiring missionaries at the time. And indeed, they moved to Japan when she was 3 and then came back when she was 12. So a lot of formative years for her spent there in Japan. She self-described, when I asked her, what do you want me to put up here? She said, crafts and flowers and music, which I think is really, really kind of fun. When they returned to Memphis, she was pretty much at Park Avenue Church, which was her parents' sponsor for all those years. And so that's a very solid mission-minded church in Memphis as well, Park Avenue. But she really enjoys mission trips and international travel in general. So it's just a little bit about our backgrounds. I know it's really hard to get to know somebody in 2 minutes in this format, but I wanted to do a little bit of something. Fast forward a little bit. We actually met at Harding in the mid-'90s or the early '90s or somewhere in there, actually in the band. So kudos to all the band nerds out there. I was a graphic design major. Emily was a music education major. And I don't know what she saw in me, but it's worked out so far. I'll say that part. I was a graphic designer for a long time, and then pivoted to art education, elementary art education, which if you've not ever done that before, buckle up. I still remember the day I put a bowl of red paint in front of 24 kindergartners. It went okay. It went okay. There was not too many kids who needed to change of clothes after that, so it worked out. And Emily has spent most of these years either as a homemaker or as a kinder music teacher, which is a really sweet place to be, and actually is going to be quite useful. We have 4 adult kids, 2 of ours, and then they have found 2 of their own. Anna, our daughter, and her husband live in Jackson, Tennessee, and then Ben and his wife, Naomi, are members here at Cloverdale. Right back there, thank you. And so we're excited about that partnership too. Let's see, we have some connections to Japan. Obviously, Emily was there as a kid, but then we took a campaign there in college, so it was a Harding campaign in 1996, mostly at the Hidaka Church up in Ibaraki, which is north of Tokyo, outside of the big city. But Emily also had the chance to do some friend-to-friend lessons through a ministry at Park Avenue. Memphis is a distribution hub, but it has several Japanese companies that bring employees to Memphis. So there's a small ministry at Park Avenue that caters to Japanese wives that had to come over with their husbands. And that's a really sweet moment. Emily also got a chance to go in 2011 after the Great East Japan earthquake and tsunami and do some disaster relief with that. I wanted to go, but work wouldn't let me. And but then also we had a chance to go as a family, the 4 of us, with Emily's parents for a couple of weeks in 2017. And the kids were able to put some names to faces and all the things that they've heard about growing up all the time. So got to see them for themselves, and it was a really sweet moment. So, like I said, as a graphic designer and an art educator, and so now at the grand old age of 50, I've decided to change it all and go to Japan. But it's actually been a long time coming. Like I said, we started in college with a campaign to Harding, for Harding to Hidaka from Harding. And after graduation, Emily and I actually considered being AETs, which is Assistant English Teachers, which was a program that was spearheaded by Oklahoma Christian to send young English speakers to assist Japanese teachers in public schools because they teach English, but they can't say English real well. So you're basically there for your accent, which poor them, we were Southerners, but still. But that opportunity ended up door closing before we were able to say yes. But as part of that process, I started at then Harding University Graduate School of Religion in 1999, sort of to explore that more deeply and really kind of feel out calling. But ultimately, we settled into a more vocational approach to ministry in Memphis. Stayed a graphic designer and a music educator, and got involved in our local church and that sort of thing. But fast forward to 2015, and Charlie Michael was the administrative minister at White Station, where we were attending in Memphis, and he asked me to lunch one day during the summer, and we ended up spending like 3 hours. I'm sure On the Border just really didn't like us taking a table for 3 hours, but he pitched the idea of me joining the ministry team at White Station in a couple of capacities, and through that experience, working there at White Station, have a internal growing sense of calling. But okay, well, I think formal ministry might be a better use of my gift sets than teaching art to elementary kids. So I went back to what is now HST in 2019 and started over with a new program studying through the MACM there. And then in fall of 2021, so a couple of years in, I'm taking sermon development with Dr. Bland, Justin Bland's dad, Dave Bland, which was a fantastic class. But the youth group was going to his property in East Tennessee for a retreat that weekend. And so I asked him, okay, well, I'm speaking at the youth retreat. will you sit in and listen and give me feedback as if it's one of our assignments in class? And he was happy to do so. But ultimately, he and I had a really good conversation about ministry and about my gift set and about what the church needs. And he used a baseball analogy. And he said, a lot of players make the team because they are a specialist. You're a designated hitter. It's clear you're on the team because you hit home runs. Or you're a starting pitcher. It's clear you're on the team because you throw a lot of strikes. And those guys are great. And a church the size of White Station can afford to hire 5 or 6 ministers. They can hire specialists. But there's another kind of baseball player that doesn't get the headlines that we all just call utility players. And he said, he pointed at me and said, you're the utility player. You play all the positions well enough. I'm not going to be the star at any one position, but I can play any position that's needed well enough. And he said, the key moment of the conversation was, he said, the place that church really needs utility players is in a rural congregation or out on the mission field. And that really kind of unlocked some doors for me to be able to consider Japanese missions on my own terms. Not because I married into this family and not because we've been, some cordial associations with Japanese people all these years, but, for me, for real reasons, for actual calling in ministry. And that was a pivotal moment. I want to focus for a moment on Luke 10, 2 through 3. Jesus says, "The harvest is plentiful, but the workers are few. Ask the Lord of the harvest, therefore, to send out workers into his harvest field. Go." I appreciate how familiar this verse is among Christians here in the States, but often hear it as quoted as it's written in Matthew. But Luke's version begins the very next words with Jesus as "go." Jesus isn't just asking us for for workers for the harvest. He wants us to follow those prayers with action. Well, that doesn't mean you need to go all the way to Japan. That doesn't mean I need to go all the way to Japan. It just means put your money where your mouth is and go. So, Japan. The need in Japan is great. It is a land filled, like absolutely filled, with people who are made in God's image. But they have little to no opportunity to hear about his love. Japanese culture holds many deep-rooted beliefs and traditions which present obstacles to faith. But we believe that our God can overcome all of them if we just listen to his voice, if we'll walk with his Son. And in spite of all the headwinds, I believe there's great opportunity for the gospel in Japan. There's an unspoken undercurrent in Japanese society, and it feels like a lack of hope. A lack of hope. Despite living in densely populated cities, many Japanese people are critically lonely. This dynamic plays out in a lot of ways, but sadly one of them is that Japan has one of the highest suicide rates in the developed world. You may be familiar with this graphic. It's a few years old. There are more people living inside this circle than there are living outside this circle. There are more people live inside this circle than outside this circle. As Americans, sometimes we get kind of tunnel vision. It's all about us, right? But there are more people in the world for whom America is a very far away place. But there's more angles to it than just sheer numbers of people. There are more Muslims inside this circle than there are outside of the circle. And there are more Hindus inside the circle than there are outside of this circle. And Buddhists, same thing. More Buddhists live inside the circle than they do outside the circle. Yet there are vastly fewer Christians inside this circle. It's another reason to go. Japan is a large industrialized nation. It's the fourth largest economy in the world, at least last I checked. And many Japanese companies are at the forefront of their respective industries. You know all the names: Toyota, Honda, Nikon, Canon, Ricoh, Hamatsu, not Hyundai, that's Korean. But they're all over the place, not just in industry, but also anime and manga and games and Nintendo, like we said. There's approximately 126 million people in Japan, which makes it a very crowded place. It's not the biggest landmass, but there's a lot of people there. 80% of them or more practice some form of Buddhism and or Shintoism, which is the native animistic religion in Japan, and less than 1% claim Christianity in any form: Catholic, Protestant, non-denominational, whatever. Less than 1%. I would even argue far fewer of those are what we would consider actively following Jesus. Their life is built on a faith in Christ. Which reminds me of Matthew 11, speaking about hope and despair. Jesus says, "Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I'll give you rest. Take my yoke upon you, learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you'll find rest for your souls. My yoke is easy, and my burden is light." We don't go to Japan with this grand plan. We go to Japan and say, "Are you weary? Are you burdened? I know where you can find rest for your souls." I believe there's opportunity for the gospel in Japan. As many find discouragement in life, that makes the gospel all the more good news. Good news. Japan is an honor-shame culture, which means it plays by different rules than American culture. We've been digging into that a lot recently and learning what that means. Part of what that means is that the gospel, yes, offers forgiveness of sins, but the gospel offers restoration of honor, because now you're God's children. And the gospel offers purpose, a life of purpose, to the many who are cast adrift and unconnected. In a place where being part of a community is foundational to your being, we offer a community in Christ that can be a whole lot better than the community that they may or may not be finding in their things. So, we're grateful for the last 2 summers that we've got to spend in Tachikawa, working with the congregation there. Hopefully, you may have seen, we have some blog reports on our website from each week of the last 2 summers. They're out there on the web, but I'll hit some highlights of that for now. But do realize you can go to fowlersinjapan.org and especially go to the blog index, and there's weekly reports from the last 2 summers. Lots of really good stuff there, tons of pictures. It's really cute. Good stuff. But I want to focus on just a few of those highlights now, so then we can get to what's next. We had several primary goals over the last 2 summers. Both summers were 6-week mission trips. And like I said in a recent email newsletter, that these faces have gone from unknown Japanese people to beloved brothers and sisters. Tachikawa asked us to come, and they showed up in a variety of ways, and they're eager to participate in kingdom work in their community going forward. And it was a real blessing getting to further deepen relationships in this congregation, and then we're excited about what God is doing in their midst. One of our primary goals, this is the top right picture, one of our primary goals was outreach through English reading. The church leadership there asked us to take on the challenge of conducting, LST-style English classes, outreach, both summers. While the numbers were a little bit smaller in year 2 than they were in year 1, the time spent with readers who did come was deeper and more insightful this year. There's opportunity, I think, for this to be a viable tool to reach non-Christians. It's a matter of finding the effective mixture of ways to connect and get people in the door. It's a very busy culture. It's hard to find time with people. But we also found this to be a really great teaching tool within the congregation. A lot of people have been Christians for a number of years, but they don't have a deep Bible study experience that we take for granted a lot of times. And so it was good. You'll notice right in the middle of this little booklet, it says Hope Navi on the, it's hard to see, but it says Hope Navi. You can think of Navi, as Japanese like to take foreign words and sort of shorten them. So you can take Navi, it means GPS navigation. So when they say, do you have a Navi? They're asking, do you have like Google Maps? But the Hope Navi is a little booklet that guides people through the basic understanding of the gospel. And super important, every page has a QR code that links right to a Bible Project video that's in Japanese. And so it turned out to be a really neat resource that we were able to share a lot of stuff. Really, it's easy to hand somebody, they'll take stuff from you. It was really good. Another of our primary goals these last 2 years was outreach through family music classes on the bottom right. This is where, Emily shines, I'll say. Like many developed nations around the world, Japan actually is struggling with low birth rates and an aging population, more severely than a lot of places are. But the Tachikawa area is bucking that trend in a very big way. Everywhere we looked, we saw families with young children. And we feel this makes great opportunity for outreach, particularly with the skill sets that we have. Emily's experience and expertise in kinder music, which if you don't know about kinder music, you need to find out more about kinder music. But that really shines. The families that came for our music classes, it's, building relationships, it's getting the name out there, it's getting people invested. And the families that came this year just really enjoyed the times. Existing relationships were deepened, so we did it 2 years in a row, but then also new relationships were established, and everybody had a really good time. And we've heard, since we've been back, that a couple of families, one or two, have even been coming back to some of the church events, even after, we're not doing the music classes now that we're back here. But although these particular classes were designed for our short 6-week trips, we're looking forward to sort of reworking them into more of a longer-term model once we get there in the future. Another of our primary goals was to encourage the brothers and sisters at Tachikawa. So whether it was a fellowship meal at the church building, like the bottom left picture, or one of our casual parties on Sunday afternoon as part of our outreach, or sharing table with friends at a restaurant, or even just a meal with dear friends over a game of cards at home, we found a lot of different ways to interact and encourage the church family there. Over and over again, people expressed just how pleased they were that we were there, and it was sweet. It was really nice. It's our prayer that working among the Tachikawa family these 2 summers has injected some much-needed energy and some excitement into the life of this church. And I think Emily and I both feel that this is certainly the case. The last of our primary goals was for me to preach 3 of the 6 weeks we were there on Sunday. So during the first summer, I preached 3 sermons which focused on Jesus as first the source of our calling, and then 2, the cornerstone in life, and then his use of Psalm 118 to let us know exactly who he is. And then this past summer, I offered a 3-part series on prayer, how prayer is more meaningful for the Christian. The Japanese people pray a lot at shrines, but it's like a quick, just say a prayer and then you go on your way and whatever. But prayer is more meaningful for the Christian, how prayer is integral to our relationship with God. And the third one was how prayer is an effective work in the kingdom of God. Both of these series were well received. I heard a number of thoughtful comments from members who had been challenged to think more deeply about things. But just as importantly, whoever preaches on Sunday at Tachikawa also gives a mini sermon for the kids. So right before the sermon, all the kids go down to the front row, and whoever's preaching comes down to the front row and does a little mini sermon with the kids, and then the congregation sings them off to the second floor where they go to Bible. They get a class just for them. The congregation really enjoys this time. It's a really sweet moment of just what's the word? It just flew out of my head. But serendipity. That's what I mean. It's just really just right in the middle of worship to have this cute little time with the kids down on the front row, and then they all march off. And then I can't sing you the song right now because I don't know it very well. But it's a very peppy kind of marching song. But anyway, but then the speaker moves to the podium and starts the sermon for the adults. And I heard people remark on more than one occasion, some weeks they get more out of the kids' part than they do from the podium. But it's a sweet moment. So we had some secondary goals as well for our time there. One of those was to meet with the Taylors, Les and Sarah Taylor, along with their kids, the top left there. They work with the Matsudo congregation, which is on the east side of the Tokyo area. It's about an hour-and-a-half train ride between the two. But we wanted to spend some time with them this summer as part of our sort of exploring this ministry calling, sort of sit at their feet, quote unquote, to learn all of the practical bits, living and working in Japan, how to get visas, how to navigate finances, a number of other topics, that sort of thing. We had envisioned, going over there, spending an afternoon with them. They had other plans, though. They invited us to stay at their house for 2 nights. And what a sweet family they are. We never actually got to most of our list of the practical questions we had wanted to take, and simply spent the time just dwelling with them, learning about their family, and having conversations that just got real deep, real quick. It was really nice. Emily and I intended to be the ones who came away with something, but Les and Sarah both expressed how meaningful the time spent together was for them and their family. It was deeply encouraging for them to spend some quality time with some other foreigners, right? We look forward to finding more opportunities to share time together, possibly even finding ways to connect our 2 congregations as we are working over there. Another secondary goal, the bottom center picture, was to attend the annual Ministers Retreat. This year, the All Japan Ministers Conference shifted to a slightly later date to accommodate the schedule of the main speaker, who happened to be John Mark Hicks, which was neat. We are thankful that they did, because that meant that it was within the time that we were around. We got to get there. Les Taylor gave us a ride. They have their retreat every year. It's at the mountains up in Nagano, so it's a couple-hour drive up to a Bible camp up there. We spent 3 wonderful days worshiping, learning, fellowshipping, playing, and most importantly, soaking in the onsen hot springs with each other, with this truly treasured group of people. John Mark Hicks led us through a study of worship and baptism and the Lord's Supper over the course of the retreat. It was really meaningful, but also challenging for everybody there. And I sensed a real excitement among all of the ministers to return to their congregations and share the things that they had learned. But this was also a great opportunity for Emily and I to spend some quality time with these other church leaders and peers. The churches in Japan are small and they're spread apart. And so the leaders of these congregations do their best to support and encourage each other by keeping this community active and engaged. I don't know how well you can tell in that picture, but that's all but about 5 or 6 of the preachers in Japan in that picture, which tells you a little bit about the need for the work in Japan. So we're grateful for the connections made and sustained during this time. Another of our secondary goals was to explore language school, right? I'm graduating next weekend from HST, really glad to be done with this degree, but it's also a little sobering to think, okay, I'm rolling right into another school. Well, okay, language school. Good. The bottom right picture is language school. As you know, as we're preparing this year to go for the summer, I did some online research looking into what language schools are available. There's a lot of them. There's a number of schools in the Tokyo area, and they all have slightly different focus. Some are catering to students that come from other parts of Asia, or some are catering to students who are trying to get into college, or some are catering to language school optimized for, business networking and that sort of thing. I kind of narrowed my list down to the top 4 or 5 places I wanted to look at, and we planned to take a day or 2 while we were there to go check them all out. But after meeting with the Taylors, I felt confident tossing out the list. Les highly recommended we go with one school, the Tokyo Academy of Communication, which is located in the Ochanomizu Christian Center, which is an 8-story building in Ochanomizu, which is close to downtown Tokyo. It's an ecumenical sort of organization. They house a lot of nonprofits and other things, Christian ministries. But this school teaches the Japanese language specifically with missionaries and their families in mind. And that was something that was really recommended. Les was really spoke highly of everything. So I reached out to the school. Takahashi Sensei on the right and Yamamoto Sensei on the left. They were just really welcoming and really encouraging. And they said, well, why don't you just come on down, spend the whole day. We'll just give you the whole day. Just sit in the class. We didn't just sit in the class. He had Emily up at the whiteboard doing the lesson. So it's clear that they approach language learning as kingdom ministry. And I think that's really a good thing to do. So we went ahead, we put our names down for fall. I think the term starts in September, and we're looking forward to their guidance and coaching as we tackle the intricacies of Japanese language and culture. Another of our secondary goals, at the bottom left picture there, was to explore options when it comes to apartments. It's one thing to look online. You can find listings of apartments online all you want, and floor plans and pictures and all that kind of stuff. It's something altogether different to getting to physically walk into a space and feel how big or not big it is in person. Japanese apartments are not that big. But we wanted to look at some real apartments, so Noriko Fukushima helped us navigate the real estate offices, and she was able to find a couple of places to look at. We measured, we walked, we dreamed, close our eyes and look at, what could this work and all that stuff. Ultimately, we came away encouraged that the prospects of finding a suitable place when we return in the fall are actually pretty good. But on the top right picture, perhaps our most important secondary goal was to meet with the Tachikawa Congregation Leadership Group and discuss a working agreement for returning full-time. We had the opportunity to enjoy, they have a regular monthly, sort of like business meeting, whatever, complete with bento lunches, and we discussed lots of topics and made adjustments and then came up with a basic framework going forward. Over the next couple of weeks, it became a formal document that everybody was able to sign, and I can get a copy of that to you if you're interested in seeing it. If you've seen the prospectus, which is the big booklet that we've been handing out, or if you've seen the email, there's a link to it there. It's included in the prospectus. So it's official. Tachikawa is ready for us to return. They're excited. They're waiting. So we are looking forward to coming. Since the summer trips, since we left, we have kept in touch. I have some updates. This, on the left, that's the Mizuki family. Hiroshi, Denise, and Kei is the young child. They're Christians, but they recently relocated to the area, and they'd been searching for a congregation. And our first Sunday at Tachikawa this summer was also their first Sunday to visit at Tachikawa. And God brought several things together in some really quite amazing ways. First, the sermon that morning was delivered by a young man named Takuma Tsuneki. And he's finishing up his graduate work at ACU currently. And it was a very neat full circle moment for him because he and his parents had been members at Tachikawa when he was a kid. And then work had taken them to other places of Japan. But now he was back preaching in the very place where he had all these fond memories, and that was a really sweet moment for him. But that made a real impression on the Mizuki family, who are trying to find spiritual places for their young daughter. But second, we announced that morning as part of our trip that there would be an interest in registration meeting later that afternoon for the family music classes that we were hoping to have. And the Mizuki family, not only did they sign up, they were the ones who came every time. It was really good. They were the most consistent attenders the whole 6 weeks. Really, it was God's timing. I think they brought this family to Tachikawa. They are now an active part of the congregation, a really sweet addition to the family there. Also on the top right, Sam and Hitomi Belton are one of the few young families at Tachikawa. They have a couple of children, and then we found out when we were there over the summer that they were expecting their third, and so which is rare in Japan. One is usually there, but low birth rate is a thing. But for a family to have three is really encouraging, especially for a Christian family to have three and to know that the church is growing in that way is pretty cool too. But we got news and some pictures of a sweet baby shower that the church had thrown for them. Sam and Hitomi actually had us in their home for a dinner the first summer, and it was a really neat time to get to know them. But during the shower, one of the older kids in the congregation was interviewing Hanae and Makoto, the other two kids, on what they thought a new baby was going to be like, a new brother. And it sounded like everybody had a good time. And it wasn't long after the shower that we got news that the baby boy arrived strong, healthy. We rejoiced at that. We look forward to meeting him when we're there in August. The top middle picture, another way that I've been able to keep in touch has been attending the monthly ministers meeting via Zoom. This is the same group of ministers that we enjoyed getting to know at the Bible camp in Nagano, the ministry conference. They meet every month to share devotional time, to discuss issues in their churches, encourage each other, maintain this brotherhood. It's really a sweet kind of time. It's late at night for me, but it's Monday morning for them. But they spend a full hour. One of them will do a devotional, and then they spend another hour talking business, which I think is really nice. That they invest a whole hour in speaking the word, and then they talk about what's going on, and I think that's really important. It can be really lonely for a lot of these ministers, particularly the ones that are out in the small communities away from the big city, and meeting regularly like this is really important. In anticipation of our ministry starting in the fall, it's been nice that I've begun attending each month. You can see my iPad sitting in the middle there with Google Translate, so I can actually read what they're saying for the most part. But the more I've been studying, the more times I read it on Google Translate. Oh yeah, that is what I just heard. Wait a minute, that is what I just heard. I knew that. It's been kind of fun, but it's another way for me to help network and get building relationships among these peers and learning something about the nature of ministry in Japanese culture, which is different than what I was doing at White Station. So, in fact, for the meeting in November, they asked me to give the devotional, which was a little daunting, but thankfully I only had to write 30 minutes of material because then somebody had to translate. So that's the nature of translation, but it was good. Also, the picture on the bottom right, in late September, the Japan School of Evangelism held a worship service to commemorate the opening of their new school year. And so a number of the ministers, all the same ministers, but also students and other supporters and church members came in person, but also they had the meeting go by Zoom. So Emily and I stayed up late one evening, and we joined as well. JSE currently has 4 students enrolled, and it was encouraging to be part of that time as well. And we heard back from a couple of people in the picture that they were really encouraged to see our faces in the Zoom call, and that was nice. So, looking forward, right? This is kind of where we're all going. So, with more of that sort of caught up to speed, I'd like to turn our attention and look forward to kind of what's next. As I mentioned earlier, we've accepted an invitation from the Tachikawa Church to return as full-time missionaries. And one of our stated purposes for the trips these past 2 summers was to get our feet wet at Tachikawa, see how we react, see how we go. And we wanted to discern whether or not this really truly was God's calling. And so Emily and I can now more confidently answer yes. We believe more strongly than ever that this is where God wants us to be. He has shown us through both of these summers, as well as the months in between, that our gifts, our talents, can contribute toward meeting some of the spiritual needs of the Tachikawa Church, and can help reach out and impact the community and help to eventually touch the lives of non-Christians living nearby. These last 2 years have confirmed and deepened our desire to serve God's kingdom in this way. So we're moving forward. We're getting ready. We've already got boxes being packed and all that stuff happening. So making plans for August. Here's a quick overview of what that will look like. Most of this comes from, I guess that's the wind. Most of this comes from the mission agreement that is in the prospectus, but there's more detail there. But I'll give it to you. We're going to start with a 2-year initial period. It's primarily language study. It's about 30 hours a week language study and then 10 hours a week ministry with the congregation. After the 2-year period, then we'll enter a 5-year period of agreed ministry period. And that's, all the regular things you might think, preaching, teaching, mentoring. There's also some opportunity to remake Tachikawa's digital spaces, some other tasks that need done about, things like live streaming and that sort of thing. Some skills that I bring to the table as well. And then after the 5-year period is done, we'll have a short period for adjustment and renewal. Take a look at the working agreement again, seek input from everybody, including Cloverdale and other stateside partners, and then make adjustments and renew for a new 5-year period. And that way we can be there on 5-year cycles for as long as God wants us to be there. But it's a little more structured than just saying, oh, well, we're just going to go. We don't know when we'll come back. So I felt that was a good balance between just saying, hey, we're going, and saying, okay, we're going for 5 years, but then not having a plan after that. So we are planning to move in August. And so there's a couple of reasons for that date. One, I will wrap up my studies at HST. Actually, I take my last final tomorrow, so that'll be great. We should walk next Saturday. That'll be good. But also, I teach Memphis City Schools. That paycheck and health benefits and all that run through the end of July. So that sort of left August as the natural next point. But that'll also give us some time this summer to get to know you at Cloverdale, make some trips to see some family, and really do some tying of loose ends here before we get to go. Yes, Emily and I are very happy to be partnering with Cloverdale. You have such a long history with international mission work, including many years of support for Brent and Sandy Rogers in Kojima. I'm especially grateful that Sandy is back here now at Cloverdale, bringing her knowledge of Japanese culture to the table. And Emily and I feel that we are in really good hands going forward. And we're excited for the experience and the wisdom that Cloverdale brings to this role. And I know the missions committee does a really good job of keeping you all updated with the various mission efforts that you're involved in, but I wanted to take just a moment to let you all know that Emily and I have a website you can always visit directly to read more about what's going on with us. There are several informational pages with background information, some of the same stuff I shared tonight. But I also try to write blog posts and try to keep updates with missions updates, but also devotional thoughts, interesting cultural tidbits. I'm doing some language study that I find makes some good information and other things. But just as importantly, we send out a newsletter every month by email. So if you would like to sign up for that, just point your camera at the QR code there, or you can find the link just about anywhere on our website, fowlersinjapan.org. Every month I send out an email. It'll have prayer requests, mission updates, ways that you can be involved, and that sort of thing. It's basically our primary way of sharing prayer concerns, ministry updates with all of our partners. So typically it sends on the first Sunday of each month. It actually went out at 2 o'clock today, but I'll probably resend it to anybody who signs up this week for as a follow-up. We really treasure prayers that you bring before the Lord on our behalf, and we consider your faithful time spent with God as a vital part of our partnership and kingdom work. So, most of all, we praise God for the opportunity to serve his kingdom. It's our hope anything that we do gives God the glory and serves to make his name honored everywhere. So we invite you to partner with us in that regard. I'd like to close with the first 3 verses of Psalm 34. I will extol the Lord at all times. His praise will always be on my lips. I will glorify in the Lord, and let the afflicted hear and rejoice. Glorify the Lord with me. Let us exalt his name together. So, I send you forth with the message that we may be going to Japan, but we are taking you with us.